Mine says Cambrian age. And you're going to, okay, let's see, how am I going to get rid of that? We have paleography, and what I really like about this is you notice you can slide back to the modern and then 750 million years ago. I often think that when we talk to younger people, kids about geology, that we sometimes don't include the fact that we were laying on the equator for a long time, and they kind of picture in their mind the continents the way they are today. So paleogeography, I think, is really important in helping kids to understand why our continent looks like it does today. I need to know if you all are seeing this meeting is being recorded by the host or a participant on your screens.
It was, but I clicked and it went away.
Okay. Okay. All right, we got rid of it, thanks. All right, so now we're going to go back to the dashboard, and we're going to click on this stratigraphic unit. So you will see that tells me more about the stratigraphic unit. Age, description, comments, lithology. So hit the button at the top left to go back to the dashboard. There was no link out on the lithology. All right, we're going to go to this, click on the stratigraphic unit. And hit the back button. Now we're going to go down the map at the bottom left. Click on the map at the lower left. If I'm going too fast, someone can let me know about that. We use the map quite a bit when we were on our trip to record where we were, and I'll show you more about that a little bit later. So you can use two fingers to zoom in and out, scroll in any direction. And if you tap on the red dot at the lower right, there are some additional, you can do the satellite view, bedrock, some other things you can do in offline maps. This is what that's going to look like, the options. Okay, at the top left, go back to the dashboard. And we have the Brunton at the bottom. So if you click on that, I myself need more training on this. But it's there and available for use. Hit the back button at the top left. And hit paleography at the paleogeography at the bottom, and that takes you into that same screen as the age from the dashboard that we looked at earlier. Now, if you hit the fossil tab at the bottom, it's going to take you into the occurrences of the fossils that have been found in this area, which is useful if you're going fossil hunting and you want to see if there are any fossils in that location. You can look at the age. From which those fossils were found. and stratigraphy. More about that. And you can click on, for example, the trilobite. Let's go back to the where you saw a trilobite here on this screen and hit subtaxa. It's going to take you to the Olenellus. I believe Jerry told me that's the pronunciation. And you can actually tap on Olenellus. There's the little arrow, and it's going to tell you more about that fossil. It's showing me here that it says 2 miles north of Square in York. So, and there's a map, so it can give you location where this fossil was found. So if you look at all the fossils there, there's a lot of information and a lot of possibilities. Okay, if we go to minerals at the bottom of the screen, you're going to find common rock forming minerals and mineral groups. So if you click on common rock forming minerals, you're going to get a screen that looks like this. And for example, click on metamorphic minerals, and it's going to show you what can be found in this area. If you click on Andalusite or any of the minerals, it takes you to a screen that will tell you more about that particular mineral. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you can hit more information. It will take you into MineDat. You can see photographs and lots of information on that particular mineral. Okay, tap close at the bottom of the screen and hit the back button at the top left several times to go back to your dashboard. And we're going to go down to the very bottom where the little icons are. So if you click on the square at the very bottom left, you're going to find posts of other users, actually from all over the country. So, and you can hit all at the top, see all or nearby. So if you have all lit, it's going to be from other country. If you're nearby, here you go. You're going to have posts from people who are looking for things in our area. So if you click on the second box, you don't have to go back to the dashboard. On the very bottom of the screen, click on the second box, and you're going to get occurrences. It tells you exactly where they're finding these things. If you click on one of the blue buttons, it's going to tell you more about that particular find. A lot of information.
Wow.
There, I clicked on the blue number 2, scroll down for info and pictures. Click on blue 2 again for the trip map. Okay, click on the screen at the very bottom, or either click whichever screen you're in. You're going to have to click the top left to get back, or in the grid at the very bottom of the screen in the middle, and it's going to take you back to the dashboard. The little head shape at the bottom of the screen, that would be if you sign in to participate. That would be your information page. And the little question mark, though, at the bottom right, using RockD, about RockD, leave a review, privacy policy. So this was clicking on the little question mark. And then if you click again at the grid, you go back to the dashboard. Okay, so that's RockD. That's just a brief review of that. We did go into some sites, but link outs. But always scroll down to the bottom because there are more link outs. Depends on how much you want to read about that particular thing you're looking at. I found it a wealth of information. And this is how we used RockD on our trip to the West. I have to say that being able to interpret at least a little bit of what we were seeing from a geology standpoint made this trip so much richer than just looking out the landscape and saying, oh, isn't that pretty? Going across the continent and being able to look at RockD and read the age of what we were driving over and trying to imagine what things looked like at that time when those rocks were being formed. It just made the trip quite wonderful. This was I can't say that all my screens are exactly in order of the route of the trip. I just tried to pick out the highlights. Now, I was taking some screenshots. I'm a big person on screenshots. I will tell you how to take a screenshot. You hold your home button in and then click the button on the side of your phone, or you'll have to find out exactly how to take a screenshot depending on your phone. But I use screenshots a lot, and then I send them to either my messages or I keep them in another form. But I shortly, a little ways into the trip, I decided that I would start taking a photograph of what we were seeing, then take a screenshot of the dashboard, and then a screenshot of the geologic map. So I have groups of 3 giving us all this information about what we saw and where we saw it. Sometimes I also took a screenshot of the paleo or some other link outs, but I always tried to keep sets of 3. So this was a very fun find. We were driving along. I showed you this screen before, where it's rather flat, and driving along that, we looked over to our right and saw a big lava flow coming up out of this flat ground. Well, knowing a little bit about geology, we knew that it was lava, so we pulled over. It's a little gas station there, Phillips 66. You can see a little bit of that in the corner. And of course, the locals didn't think too much of the outcrop. There was a little bit of trash in there, but Roger and I were quite taken by it. Just imagining, okay, there we were in this flat, unsorted gravel, and there had been a volcano spouting up out of the ground, and here were the remnants of it. So there are the 3 screenshots I took, and there's what we found. On our trip, we came across the little town of Chloride. It was just a small sign that said chloride this way. And we decided to pull in and discovered that Chloride is a little sleepy town. It was one time silver mining camp in Mojave County and is considered the oldest continuously inhabited mining town in the state. We arrived there very early and no one was around yet in the morning. There was a store that was selling rocks. There were some really nice pieces of turquoise that I would have loved to purchase, but we waited for over an hour for the people to come and open the store. Finally ran across someone and asked when they actually do open. And he said, well, whenever they feel like coming in. So we didn't wait any longer. Unfortunately, we couldn't make a purchase there. But the town itself actually is quite artsy now. It's you can see that they've gone into the hills and pulled down a lot of the mining equipment. And there are metal artists there who are making all kinds of things using these parts from the left over from the mining period. Roger and I spent a little bit of time in the cemetery waiting for the people to come into the store, and we found the grave of two of the earliest miners who were dispatched by Native Americans. And the cemetery is very interesting. It's an active cemetery, and a lot of veterans were buried there. We always find cemeteries kind of interesting, and we can see how the people of that area and what kind of decorations they put, and we always learn a lot from cemeteries. Here's another geologic surprise. Again, this was an overlook. And standing at the overlook, you can see the truck. So that's what we were driving over. That's the road you would pull off of to go on, up to this overlook. So it was flat. And looking to our right, then we saw a big an outcrop. So we started there driving. We were driving on the Mexican highland. All of a sudden, big outcrop, much younger. And you can see that it's metamorphic. A geologic surprise. So most people were going to the overlook, but we were climbing up the rock to see what was in there. Pretty neat. Our son lives in California, so we did go all the way to California and spend some time in the Coast Ranges. This is a very famous Morro Rock. It's a kind of a tourist destination. A lot of sea otters there. People like to go and look at the otters. And there's some more of the Coast Ranges. A lot of interesting geology there. California Trough. After we left the Coast Ranges, we drove over to Bakersfield and then north along the Sierra Nevadas. And I discovered the California Trough. Quite a large feature. I had not been on the ground in the West before. Flown over it many times to visit our son, but this was my first time on the ground. It was amazing. So we went into Kings Canyon, and actually we were there during the Dixie Fire. So some of the photographs you're going to see now have a lot of haze from the Dixie Fire. Then in Yosemite, up to Yosemite, and again, that haze is all from the Dixie Fire. We had on our trip, we were to go to Lassen Volcanic National Park, but that actually completely closed because of the Dixie Fire, just the day before we were to head up there. So our itinerary had to be completely changed by a couple of days. So we went over toward Carson City and then decided to drive down Route 50 to go. We visited Gold City, Silver City, and Nevada, Virginia City. But one of the little towns we passed going down there was Dayton. We didn't know anything about Dayton, but they had a pretty cool looking sign there. So we stopped and took some pictures with the sign, then drove around the corner and discovered that a lot of the building fronts were reminiscent, if not originals, of the gold rush. And on that street, there was a stone schoolhouse and two men were fixing the front porch. Turns out it was a little museum, and the museum was closed because they were fixing the front porch. But Stoney, as you see in the picture, said that he would, well, he said, I'll take you into the museum. So he took us in, and it was a most wonderful little museum. He and his wife have collected artifacts. They had everything in there to do with mining and family life and all clothing that they've collected from years since the gold rush. It was quite amazing. He particularly, you can see him with the Native American grinding tools. They ground their flour. That's his case, but and it was just really nice to meet a person who took such a strong interest in their town. And he also told us where we could go and look for some rocks. And he said, go up to the top of the hill where the cemetery is, and there's a wash. So we went up to the top of the hill, and that's the picture at the top. You can see that is the haze from the Dixie Fire. You can barely see the town at the bottom. It turns out that gold was discovered in, I have it written there, gold was discovered in Dayton, and it is located at the end of the Comstock lode. As miners moved up the valley, mining, Dayton became actually a town that supported the miners. They could go in there to buy their goods and their equipment and so forth. Okay, well, this is heading back. The Salt Flats. And again, I used taking 3 photographs and then the 2 screenshots. My sister-in-law lives in Denver, north of Denver. So we visited the graveyard of Buffalo Bill Cody. He's up on a little mountain there, and that's looking down from the mountain, and nice piece of metamorphic rock there. Okay, heading home. This is what I did with my data. I put it all in a notebook so I could look back to see where we were. This is how I mounted my specimens. I'm still working on that. I do not have any professional training in geology, so I decide what to write on my cards. And what I have in front of me there are rock collections for each of our grandchildren, building a rock collection for each of them. And this is one reason why we do it. There are 5 grandchildren, and they all have their own little set of tools already. The two older granddaughters, of course, have been up to New Ringgold. That's Zachary and the California coast ranges. And the pictures on the right are Rossville. Azurite malachite at Rossville. I have to say that Canyon de Chelly was one of my, looks like Chelly, but it's pronounced Canyon de Chelly, was one of our favorite places. It was amazing. And I have to say, being able to look at the continent as a geologic body, and like the canyon lands are really all one geologic formation, just different canyons. The California Trough, the Mississippi, what the Mississippi Delta used to be, looking at the continent through those glasses was quite a revelation. And really, I think helped us to grow a lot in our understanding of the geology of the continent. And that would be the end.
Nice job, Diana. Anybody has any questions, put them into the chat.
Did you visit Dinosaur Ridge in Denver?
We did not. We did. We were at Dinosaur National Park for a couple of nights and stayed by the Green River. And that was pretty fabulous. There were some
I live
rocks.
in Denver.
especially
I
one
live in
rock-
Denver. That's why I ask.
Okay, there was one rock I really wanted to bring home by the Green River, but we followed the rules. You know, there are strict rules about where you can collect rocks from. They're very strict in petrified forest. They don't want you to bring that wood, those minerals out in wood. So we followed all the rules, but you know, we collected where we were allowed outside the parks. So I left it there. Yes. And any other questions? Any questions about RockD? There's a lot of information there, and I know I got ahead of myself a couple of times on the screens and so forth, but play around with it and look at the link outs. There's just so much, and it really is a wealth of information that's really helped me to grow in my knowledge and to know where to look for some things, go on day trips and so forth.
Alrighty, well, that was great. Thank you so much. Is this available outside of the US or is it a US based app only?
I don't know if it's,
I used it in Switzerland. Switzerland, France, and Germany.
Awesome.
good to know.
Yeah. Just a lot of comments for you about how great that was. And I always like to take a notebook on my trips too, but I really like incorporating the app into it. So I'm definitely learned something today. I think we all did.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. It's the teacher in me. I guess I'll never get over it.
Somebody's asking how they take a screenshot, and Diana was right. It does differ from phone to phone. So you might want to kind of Google your phone and see what it says specifically for your phone a lot of times it's like power button and the volume down button together. And each phone is different though.
One of the things I would add is when you click on the map in RockD, you get the geologic map. If you touch anywhere on the map, you can look at the different formations. They'll pop up too. So it's not only where you are, but what's around you as well.
Thank you very much. I did use that feature, but I forgot to mention that. That Maps is full of information.
All right. Any last questions before I go on here? We're not.
We just do have a request for Larry next time he's in Japan.
Oh,
We want to report back.
is that real time? We want a real time report, don't we?
Yes, definitely.
Real time. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do my best.
We're not quite done. We actually have a special guest in the room tonight.
I'm not special.
And I had it called up here. If you actually go to RockD and you would open the map and then you would punch on a rock formation after the stratigraphic name and description, and at the end of the comments, it's always going to say original map source, Pennsylvania Bureau of Topographical and Geologic Survey, Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, CE Miles, and TG Whitfield compilers. And we're honored to have Mr. Tom Whitfield here tonight, retired from the Pennsylvania Survey, who is going to give you just a very short description about his part, how Pennsylvania got into RockD.
Well, it's mostly arm waving, so it's that, yeah, it's the data set itself dates back to 2001. Like I said, I'm a retired senior geologist from the Geologic Survey, and I got into GIS in 1992. And at that time, when we saw how much this was going to pull ahead and how useful it's going to be, we were trying to come up with a way to have a geologic data set that would cover the entire state. And at that time, it was the Tom Berg map in 1980, that big paper map you see on the wall. And Tina and I proposed a project to digitize this thing. And this was late 1990s, so we're using ArcInfo. We weren't using the more modern ArcGIS. But what we came to find out was the paper map itself was not, as a friend from the USGS told me, it was a work of art. It was not meant to be digitized. If you ever look at you can get the PDF of the paper map. And if you ever look around the edge, you will not see a projection because there isn't a known projection for it. Williamson Heights made the map itself, and they did the best they could with their wind sheets and everything, but it was never meant to be digital, and it took us a while to figure that out. So we ended up actually going back to the source material, which would include what the quad you see in map 61, that big folder full of stuff, and the actual works from published works from previous geologists and some unpublished works. And that we could actually digitize. We used the UTM projection at the time because that's what the USGS was using for their digital quad sheets. So 5 years later, we finally got this thing out, and that was in 2001. And it's been one of the more popular downloads. A couple of things I want you to keep in mind, because this was used for, RockD uses it for our entire state. A couple of things to keep in mind is that nothing at the Pennsylvania Geological Survey is copyrighted. So they used a lot of our nomenclature, but there were some things that were changed, and they don't have to tell us. They don't even have to give us get our permission to use the data. I mean, we would ask for credit, but that, so just keep in mind that some of the stuff that you may find on the geologic map may not be what we put into it. And the other thing to keep in mind is that the original map 1, the big paper map, was compiled at 1 to 250,000 scale. Now it's a small, very small scale as compared to like the quad sheets that everybody uses, the 1 to 24,000 big green ones, which is a larger scale. And when we did the digital part, we wanted to keep that scale. So as not to, we didn't want to augment it with new data. We just wanted to get the thing out and get it used. If you want the augmented end part of it, you go on to the PA Geode, the interactive map, and it'll have map overlays of new, usually more accurate stuff. So, keeping that in mind, because I know on RockD you can zoom in, and there are some things that you have to keep in mind is that it's not, the scale is not good enough to tell you exactly where you are under your feet. I've had people come up and say, well, you have a boundary here, but it's way over there. I said, okay, that's within the range. This is a standard 0.5 millimeter mechanical pencil I use all the time. On a topographic 1 to 24,000 topographic map, it draws a line 40 feet wide. This same pencil on the paper map one at 1 to 250,000 draws a line 410 feet wide. So that covers a lot of sins, and yet somewhere between here and there. And I don't know if you've used, like I said, PA Geode before. You zoom in on PA Geode, you see the geology, and then at one point it disappears. That was by design because you can't take it down that far. But if you want to really get a really good idea of what you're on, sure. It may not be exact. There are a number of things that we had to do with generalization and whatnot, because stuff just doesn't fit. The real tiny stuff you'll never see. The Ames limestone in Pittsburgh area, it's about 5 feet, so he sees a line. The Valentine limestone up in State College, very valuable. It's thinner than this, my pencil. But all in all, I'm really glad to see it's being used, and a lot being used well. And a shameless plug for scale mapping and everything. Oh, it's going to disappear there. This is an article I wrote for PA Geology back in 2016 called A Matter of Scale. And I go into, how do you depict what's in your mind on paper so somebody else can see the same thing? And but I was greatly honored to see actually something really neat in RockD, and I'm so happy that Jerry allowed me to join the group tonight. So thank you. If you have any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah,
put them in the chat as always, if you would, for Tom. He actually saw our program advertised in the Harrisburg Area Geological Society's online newsletter, and contacted me about just wanting to join in tonight and get an invite. And I said, if you're coming in, you're going to say a few words.
Yeah.
So I appreciate Tom doing that, and
My price of admission.
thank you very much. Yeah.
You bet, Jerry.
All right. Well, I know the Roger and Dianna Guise went through a lot of cornfields on their trip out west and back. So anybody know what a corn cob calls his father? Popcorn. Why not?
No.
No. Next time we see y'all, you're going to have your brains working, and you're going to participate in our geography of North America quiz, prizes included. Okay, and I got to tell you, I had a long day today. I just got back from I made a trip to Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania today to I've gotten hired to be another racetrack consultant at the Bloomsburg Fair. With their, they've had some dust issues that the neighbors are complaining about. So now that it's on my shoulders to get rid of that dust, and so those neighbors don't complain to the borough anymore. But anyway, we had a good trip up there, and I have another racetrack under my belt. I have to watch. So so in 2 weeks we'll be back with you for the quiz, and I'll pass it over to Brittany, who will take us out of here.
Alrighty, thanks, Jerry, and thanks, Diana. That was great. I always love vacation pictures, and thanks for joining us, Tom. Hopefully, we'll see you again sometime. Everyone, have a good couple weeks and stay safe.
See ya.